Okay, sound, beauty and ugliness in building code. Modernism as a case for organized crime. Let us just dive straight into it. We do have a claim, as we heard from Professor Curl, that a colossal crime has been committed against humanity and common sense, written on page 302 in my version of your book. And also quoting Charles Deng's, half of Europe was destroyed due to the alliance of the Corbusian dream of mass culture and greed. It's a claim that it has been committed a crime. A crime is a serious word, it's serious stuff, so we have to look into it. And there are some serious evidence to be brought to the table. We have thousands of photos. It's a lot of examples. It's not difficult. This is in Sweden. We can see it used to be like that. It became like that. This is here in Oslo, about 1 kilometer that way, just beside or up from the castle. This is about 1 kilometer that way, to the Youngstorget, the headquarters of labor movement. So we do have a case. The plaintiff could say to be the people. Of course, it's not Mr. Curl or other people who say about the same thing, but this is on behalf of the population. So the defendant must be modernism, or perhaps more specifically functionalism, but we don't have time for the definitions right now. The law applied would be building code, or more specifically, aesthetic regulation. So then we have to ask, what does aesthetic regulation actually protect? What is it for? Does it protect beauty or does it protect democracy? This is a central question. Meaning, does it protect aesthetic environment as a human right and need? Or does it protect just the local authorities' right to uphold a chosen aesthetic policy? In the first instance, it's what we could call a value-based regulation. But the second instance is a content-neutral regulation. Meaning in the first one refers to beauty as a factual phenomenon, something that exists, independent of your opinion, while the second one protects just the right to have an opinion. The correct answer is actually both. The law is meant to protect both of these because they are intertwined. So there are some arguments here, some common arguments. The upper quote is from a law journal from 2010, which sums up more or less the dominant view today, but this is always disputed. So-called content-neutral justifications will not solve the problems of democracy and legitimacy inherent in aesthetic regulation. Only value-based justifications can do that. And this is in line with the parliamentary discussions in Norway leading up to the Planning and Building Act from 2009 that we have now. They stated that the majority, that is, of the political parties represented in the law committee, disagrees that it is possible only to make subjective assessment of such a concept, which is aesthetic quality or beauty. Professional architectural criteria should be applied in the assessment. Now, whatever that is, but it is assumed that some kind of professional architectural objective criteria exist and can be used when we are treating building permit applications. So what is stated is that beauty is not just subjective, and value-based assessment is required to uphold the law. Now, we can use Norwegian building code as an example because it's fairly representative of what we find in at least Northern Europe and Northern America. It's divided in 5 sectors. It's aesthetics, it's one sector, then it's health, fire, construction, and communication. Buildings or the built environment must be beautiful. It's supposed to be beautiful. And you're not supposed to be, it's not supposed to make you ill, it's not supposed to burn down or fall down, and it needs to be accessible. More or less, that's it. But there is another requirement here. All these separate requirements to a building have equal legal status, whether it's separate paragraphs or sectors or whatever. This is stated clearly in the preparatory documents of the law. So actually, prioritization of any provision at all at the expense of aesthetics is just not legal. You can't do it. It's not legal. Now, then we can go straight to the core paragraph, which is often called the beauty paragraph. 29.2, it used to be 74.2 in the previous law, which states that Each and every project shall be designed and carried out so that, in the opinion of the municipality, it maintains good visual qualities, which is the law term for beauty or aesthetics. In law, aesthetics means beauty, both inherently with regard to its function and its constructed and natural surroundings and location. So what is stated is that aesthetic assessment is a statutory obligation. You have to do it in every planning and building permit application. And there are 4 separate provisions that has to be met in every case, otherwise it's not legal. So what do they mean? Good visual qualities with regard to function. That refers to familiarity or culture or convention, we could say. A church shall not look like a factory, for example, because it isn't a factory, it's something else. Inherently refers to intrinsic quality, that there is some factual positive kind of beauty that has to be present here. Surroundings refers to environmental harmony. It's like you can't build that building here. Maybe over there, but it doesn't fit here. And placement actually refers to relative strictness. You need to have a higher bar or higher standard in important areas, like the city center or conservation area, than you do have in an industrial area. So the 3 lower ones are subject to different levels of strictness. Okay, this paragraph raises some fairly ordinary questions about duties, rights, freedoms, and interests in society. For example, is there a duty to be beautiful? Do you have a duty to be beautiful when you're building something? Yes, you do. Each and every project shall be designed and carried out, etc. Do you then, or is there a right to be free from ugly environment? Is this a right that we have as members of society? Yes, that's a consequence of point 1. And then, is there freedom to erect ugly buildings? Why can't I do that on my property? No, there can't be. That's a consequence of point 1. And fourthly, who has interest in beauty? Is it just me or just us and a few else? Or, of course, it's stated in the opinion of the municipality, which represents the people. It's in everybody's interest. And then what is the opinion of the people? Well, that is quite clear. We have a lot of evidence. There's a lot of documents about this. It has been researched and polled and for many years. This is a PhD from Sweden, 2007. Architects aspire to be modern or current. They copy influential architects and they like simple and naked buildings. People, more in general, they prefer brick instead of concrete. They like historical references in new buildings. They like variation in small-scale environment. Or if you go to opinion polls, they usually have a result like this. About 3/4 of the population, they prefer something that looks classical or traditional, while perhaps 25% approximately would like to have something that looks modernist. This is an opinion poll from 2010, the ugliest building in Norway. It was completed in 1975, post-war modernist architecture, we could say. It's a city hall, trademark of social democracy. The year 1975 is crucial. That was the year of the European architectural heritage. That was a huge event all over Europe to save the architectural heritage of the continent. Because of what was stated on the first slide, half of Europe was destroyed. Not by Luftwaffe, but by modernist architects, explicitly. And we got the European Charter of Architectural Heritage, which stated that integrated conservation should make full use of all existing laws and regulations. They should be supplemented by appropriate legal instruments. The European architectural heritage is the common property of our continent. So what is basically stated is that law must be applied against modernism. Architectural heritage is common property of humanity. Could we then assume that destruction of heritage is a crime against humanity? We'll leave it open for now. But then we can go back to these photos, before and after. And this is what you have to do if you work in the municipality and handle building permit applications. Do they meet these criteria? Function, inherently, surroundings, placement. Do they? What do we have here? Is it a reasonable suspicion? Or is it a probable cause, which is slightly more serious? Or do we have a criminal offense? Which level are we at? Obviously it's built, so somebody has said that this is legal. But what about this? This is in King's Cross in London, the mid one, infill project, or the other ones are extensions or Norwegian houses. What about this? If we scramble the legal terms that are on the table is criminal offense, crime against humanity, perhaps, or organized crime. Okay, it sounds a little... we have to let the defendant speak now. So what do they actually say? They have a lot to say. This is the Declaration of Siam from 1928, founded in 1928, the International Modernist Congress. Now, at this time, there were a lot of manifestos and declarations, etc., from different groups of architects, very much idealism and rich landscape, but this is the main organization. This is the main declaration. So this is where we should look at least. What would they say if we presented them with that organized crime? Well, they have said something. They declare themselves members of an association and will give each other mutual support on the international plane with a view to realizing their aspirations morally and materially. Now, organized crime, what's that? According to Encyclopedia Britannica, it's crime committed on a national or international scale. Their principal source of income derives from the supply of illegal goods and services for which there is continuous public demand, like buildings. They are characterized by a hierarchy of ranks with assigned responsibilities, the coordination of activities among subgroups, efforts to corrupt law enforcement authorities, which is more or less what was stated on the previous slide. This is what we will do, they said. So, if we take another quote here, could we go further and say something about crime against humanity, or organized crime against humanity? Is it far-fetched? They expect from the consumer, that's the customer who orders the house in which he will live, a revision of his demands in the direction of a readjustment to the new conditions of social life. Such a revision will be manifested in the reduction of certain individual needs, henceforth devoid of real justification. So henceforth, modernist architects are the judges of what is your justifiable needs. And what are those needs? Well, that's clearly stated on the poster for their meeting in 1929. Die Wohnung für das Existenzminimum. Your justifiable need is to live as close to suicide as possible. That is at the heart of modernism. You're allowed to survive. So, what is crime against humanity? According to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, Article 7, there has to be a physical element, perhaps a building. There has to be a contextual element, a methodical type of violence which is systematic. The plan or policy does not need to be explicitly stipulated or formally adopted and can therefore be inferred from the totality of the circumstances. And there has to be a mental element as well. This does not need to target a specific group. The victim of the attack can be any civilian population. It is not necessary to prove that there is an overall specific intent. And this, I would say, is what was more or less stated in the declaration. This is what we will do. This is our plan. Now, just to sum up this very short, brief talk, a few more quotes from the declaration. All the prescriptions of the state which tend to influence architecture by giving it a purely aesthetic direction must be vigorously combated. They therefore refuse categorically to apply in their working methods means that may have been able to illustrate past societies. So destruction of beauty and tradition is a stated goal. This is what we are going to do. And it is essential today for architects to exercise an influence on public opinion. The effect of education would be to bring up generations with a healthy and rational conception of the house. So, indoctrination of the public and students is a stated goal. This is what we want to do. So, in face of these very brief quotations that I brought up here, if we should end up at some kind of verdict, it's, I think, hard to avoid this conclusion of proof beyond reasonable doubt. And with that, I rest my case. Wow!